This meeting is being recorded.
Hi, welcome to A Word with Kellie Scott Reed. We're here with Stephen Black. Hi, welcome.
Hello, Kelly. Hello from Northern Ireland. And hello, Marianne,
I'm
as
so
well.
glad you're coming. And I'm so excited you're coming to us from Northern Ireland. I have a lot of family in Belfast, so I wonder if you know them.
Yes, obviously, about 1 million people live in Belfast, and I know them all personally.
I always ask, do you know so-and-so? And you'd be surprised how many times they say, yeah, it's kind of strange. And you meet people all the time. You go, do you know this person from this distant place? And they're like, how did you even ask that?
Well, I mean, Northern Ireland, it's a joke, but, a lot of people say Northern Ireland's like one big village, and through a number of degrees of separation, you kind of do know everyone eventually. But Belfast is overrun by American tourists, so I think there's more Americans than Irish people in Belfast at the minute.
Yeah, trust me, I've planned on moving there multiple times in the last few years. So
You should.
that's been a plan. That's been a very much
Well,
a dream of mine.
My wife would happily move to New York, so maybe we could do a swap.
Anytime we could do a house swap. I've heard of that happening. I would be thrilled to do that. You would like where we live too, because we're in the Finger Lakes region of New York. So it's the wine country. It's gorgeous. It's really beautiful. Yeah, lots of lakes. Everybody thinks we're New York City, but no, we're closer towards the upper mid part of New York. So you'd love it. It's beautiful. It's a great place to visit. So, Stephen, you're an author, obviously, a prolific author. When did you start writing, or when did you find that it was something that you wanted to do?
I guess I've always written. I remember writing as a teenager, and I did my degree in modern history, so I did a lot of sort of reading and research and writing for that degree. But then when I went into full-time employment, I kind of stopped reading and writing. My day job is pretty full on. I'm actually my day job. I'm a report writer, but it's I work in a civilian investigative body, so I write a lot of investigation reports and public statements for the organisation. But I wasn't doing anything outside of work because I was reading and writing all day at work, and then I came home and the last thing I wanted to do was read and write. So it's really only the last 3 or 4 years I've started to expand into creative writing. And my first love has always been fantasy, horror, gothic fiction. I grew up reading all that, so that's naturally the genres I've tended to veer into. So, and it's just kind of taken off from there, and it's going very well at the minute.
Yeah, it seems to be. And it's funny because you talk about gothic horror and kind of the dark, you have this dark writing, it's what you delve into, but you have such a positive persona in the Twitter community, the Twitter literature community. You are such a ray of sunshine. You're always putting positivity forth, and then you write dark things. Is that like a form of exercising your own demons, or is that just an interest that you have?
I think definitely. I mean, whilst my writing can be very dark, there's always humor's never too far away. And no one, if you know Belfast people, Kelly, they have, it's had quite a dark history, but they've often used humor to deal with it. So if you read, certainly my Kirkwood Scott books, there's, it's dark and it deals with very tough issues, but there's always a kind of black humor in the background, and there's always a little flicker of hope with my characters and with the situations they're in. And the characters I write about are underdogs, and they're beset with problems, be it addiction or mental illness or physical disability. But when they come together, there's that strength and unity. So I write about dark places, but there's always a little glint of hope there.
Well, you do have that energy, that positive energy. So I could see where that would seep into the characters. Now, is there a book that you've written that's near and dear to you more than the others?
Probably the book, my first book, Kellie Square. It's the one that kind of, for want of a better word, launched me and got me known out there within the writing community. And it's very personal to me. It's my father died about 10 years ago, and there's a lot of issues. I mean, Kirkwood, the main character, loses his father at an early age. I was lucky to have my father for most of my life, but Kirkwood loses his father as a young boy. And a lot of the themes and issues I explore around grief and bereavement are captured in Kellie Square. So, I mean, I think I've now written 3 books and have another 2 with publishers, but I think Kellie Square will always be very special because of that.
Have you, has it changed how you see yourself as you've published? We come into our writing, with ourselves, in our emotions, our feelings, our past. Once you're published and out there, does it change how you feel about yourself? Does it affect how you see yourself?
Not really. I always have. My wife always says, with me the glass is. You say I'm a positive person, but my wife would say, with me the glass is always half empty as opposed to half full. So, I don't think it's changed me. I mean, I think I'm quite. I'll never have a big ego. My family will certainly keep my feet on the ground, and I'll never get carried away. Because to them I'm just like their stupid, silly dad who is constantly embarrassing them. Not some author on social media. So I don't think it's changed me that much. I hope not.
Interesting. I mean, coming into writing, I'm very new. I've written all my life, but I've only just started to kind of have my stuff out there because it's very much like my babies when I send them out. Like, I don't love criticism. So when you work with editors, how does it feel to you to receive any criticism or feedback? I mean, how do you take it? How do you deal with that part of publishing?
You develop a thick skin very quickly, or you don't survive long. I think I've been lucky in that the editors I've worked with are very positive and objective in the feedback they provide. It's always constructive, and they're always trying to make me a better writer and make the story a stronger story. I also now, as well as everything else, I work with Cullen Crow Publishing House, which you might know from Twitter, and I'm their acquisitions and editor, and I also do a bit of developmental editing for them. So I'm kind of poacher turned gamekeeper, as well as being a writer. And now on the other side of the fence, I deal with a lot of. I mean, the last 3 weeks we're working on a short story anthology, and I've went through 130 short stories. So. And I'm giving feedback to our editor in chief about them. So I kind of see it from both sides of the fence now, and I try to be constructive and positive in any feedback I give because I know what it's like to be in the receiving end.
That's interesting. That's a lot. You do a lot plus your day job. How do you find the time? Like, how do you structure your day for writing?
Well, my wife will say I take on too much, and she's probably right. I found, certainly with the last book I wrote, I used to commute in and out of Belfast on the train. It's about a 30-minute train journey, and most of my writing was done on the train, in and out to work, or on my lunch break. I set myself a target of 1,000 words a day, and try to stick to that religiously, because 1,000 words a day, 3 months of that, and you have a book. I don't have to write for the next 9 months of the year. I can do other stuff. So certainly with the likes of my most recent book, which is a gothic fantasy called The Famine Witch, a lot of that was spent written, when I'm sitting on a train, or I have a tendency to always wake up an hour in the morning before the alarm clock goes off. So I'll be writing on my phone maybe before I get up in the morning. So I try to do it at a time when I have free time and it doesn't impact too much on the other stuff I need to be doing.
But you're giving me some really good ideas because I need to start fitting it in. I take on too much as well. So I absolutely take on too much. And writing
I
kind of
know,
gets
I
fit.
know. I read your tweets. You never stop.
No, but I have to, sometimes you get to kind of eventually go, okay, wait, prioritize. And I want to bring a little bit more happiness with writing in my life as opposed to just drudgery in particular. Could you describe a time in your life when you realized that language had power?
I'd probably go back to my work. I deal with a lot of my work. We're looking at historic murders that happened during the Northern Ireland Troubles, and we conduct investigations into those. And without going into detail, we were dealing with a lot of bereaved families and victims and survivors. And it really is, when you're writing a report that families have waited on for 20, 30 years to find out about the death of their loved one, you do realize how impactful language can be and words can be. And you need to be so careful, whether you're writing to these families or having a meeting with them, you have to be so careful with your choice of words because language is so powerful and it can be amazing and constructive and, give them great hope and comfort, but it can also, the wrong phrase or the wrong sequence of words or even the manner in which you say the words, it can destroy people. It can really damage people. So through that, I've certainly learned a lot more about empathy and being, very aware of what I'm saying and knowing my audience before I open my mouth.
I just finished, well, not just finished, it's probably been like a year, the book Say Nothing. It's about the troubles in Ireland. Gosh, right. I want to I'm not sure if you heard of that book.
No.
But it was, I'm sorry, I have to ask my husband, Rob, is it called Say Nothing? Yeah, so Say Nothing, a book about the troubles in Ireland that was really incredible. And like you said, the power of words, and again, the power of rumor, the power of misinformation getting out there. So it's just very interesting. I would highly recommend that book, especially since that's the work that you're involved in. It's really fantastic.
Yeah, I'll look that up. I thought I'd read every book on the Northern Irish Troubles, but obviously I haven't. So there's another one.
It was the New York Times. I think it's written by an American author. It was in the New York Times. I will send you a link to it. It's really very, very good. If you weren't writing, what is something that you do for creative outlet?
Whew. Good question. I'm kind of I like to do one thing and do it well. So before writing, I was a runner. I don't know if you would call running creative, but it was certainly an outlet for me. And, then I didn't have a period of great health. And then I got wiped out with COVID during the summer. So funny, I was talking to my wife today about maybe starting to get back into running because I found that was really good for my mental health. And it really helped me through some difficult times running. So certainly, I don't know whether you call it a creative outlet, but certainly I'd like to get back into some form of physical exercise.
I consider it creative. I'm a yoga instructor, so I do find it creative. I think that absolutely is creative.
Definitely not yoga. I'd end up in hospital.
I don't think so. Anybody can. It's just the type of yoga that you do.
I can run in a straight line, but that's about it.
Do you have any creative, literary heroes?
Well, I grew up reading. Well, it's actually here. I keep it on I grew up reading Tolkien. So early influences certainly would be Tolkien and Stephen King would be my two big influences when I was growing up. And I grew up on, The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and the likes of it. and the Shining, books like that. Nowadays, I do read a lot of fantasy, but I read a lot of Irish authors. There's some really good Irish authors out there at the minute, and I also try to support as many indie authors as I can. I mean, in the writing community, I've met so many authors and I've picked up their books, and they're fantastic, and they're just as good as anything you'd see in the New York Times bestsellers, if not better, some of them. So there's some fantastic indie authors out there. So I'd read the back of a cereal packet. I love reading. So it's but Tolkien and King would be my two main influences growing up.
What intrigued you about Tolkien when you were a kid? What was the thing that drew you into that?
I think it's just the escapism. I think maybe, in 1980s in Northern Ireland, it could be quite a bleak place, and it was just being able to escape to this completely different world that he created, and he had created a completely different world with different, a different culture, languages, music, history, and the books were just so big. You could escape into them for weeks on end. So I think escapism.
Do you have anything that hinders your writing, like a writing kryptonite of sorts, that's something that kind of stops you in your tracks when you're trying to be creative?
I'd say it's a weakness and a strength. I was diagnosed with OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, about 10 years ago. And people would see that as a hindrance, that it may set you back and it might sidetrack you, but I found it's helped me in many ways. I mean, Kirkwood, my main character, has OCD, and it allowed me to write about OCD, and sort of it's a kind of therapy for me, being able to write about it and explore it, put down on paper all the stuff that's been in my head for decades and get it out of my system. So that's probably how I'd answer. In some ways it's a weakness. I could talk about it for until midnight, but it's also a strength, and it's also helped my writing in many ways.
Mm-hmm. And I see that you write novels. Do you write poetry as well, or any shorter pieces, or are you someone who likes to have a fully fleshed out novel?
I don't write poetry. I do write short stories. I've had a couple of short stories published by Quill and Crow, and that's where I get to explore the more gothic side of my writing. And both, they've had a couple of anthologies out, and also in their online literary magazine. So that's where I do my gothic fiction writing. At the minute, though, I'm focusing on novels. I've got two, as I say, with publishers. So I'm going to be getting pretty involved in the editing side of that, and hopefully they'll be out in 2023, 2024. So that's plenty to keep me busy.
That's amazing. You're very prolific, and again, you set those times, you do that writing. It kind of stuns me because you'll post something about something that's coming out. I'm like, where is he getting this time to write these huge books? It's amazing to me. It really is. It's a superpower, because I shouldn't say I can't. I have real trouble not becoming really bored with my own voice. So I'll start to write something. I'm like, I lost interest in my own story. That's probably not the best idea. How do you keep it fresh for yourself, writing characters that you might repeat in other novels? How do you keep it fresh for yourself?
I think it's always, having characters and putting them into different situations. I mean, in Skellie Square, my main three characters were dealing with stuff that was going on in modern day Belfast. But in the next book, A New Jerusalem, there's a bit of time travel, and without giving it away, they go back to early 19th century Belgium, and they also go into Belfast in the year 2099. So it's putting those characters into completely alien situations and seeing how they adapt and evolve. And I sit down, I haven't a clue what I'm going to write. It's kind of the characters tell me what to write. I've a very loose plan in my head, but it's like unrolling a carpet. As I can't sit and plot out a novel. I can only plot a novel as I type. So as I type, I see what's coming around the corner for my characters.
That's a gift, I believe, because I would lose track if I didn't plan it out somewhat. Like I always have an ending in mind. In my brain, I start with the end and then I work through, okay, how am I going to get to that destination? Almost like a plan. So when I hear about it just unfolding, I'm just so impressed with that. That really kind of blows my mind. Really.
When any book I start writing, I have no idea how it's going to end until I'm about 3/4 of the way through it. So it works for me. And other writers look at me like I'm a madman, but it works for me.
That's awesome. Well, okay, so you said you had some stuff coming out. Anything in the near future we can look forward to from you, besides the writing you're doing? Anything working with your editing work? What you got coming out?
Quill and Crow have a new anthology coming out, and I think, there's been so many submissions. They've decided instead of putting out one anthology, they're going to put out 2 volumes, and the premise was gothic, dark fantasy, horror fiction around the theme of bleak midwinter. So we had a massive number of submissions. So there's going to be 2 volumes of that coming out. One, I think, in November of this year, and then the next one I think is out in January. And then going through 2023, Quill and Crow are going to be putting out a series of novels by some fantastic authors, Lydia Russell, Sabrina Vorman, I'm going to forget Catherine Ferns, and others. And then January 2024, my book with the Quill and Crow, The Famine Witch, which is a dark historic novel set in 1840s Belfast, is going to come out. So on the editing acquisitions front, very busy for the next year or so. A lot of stuff coming out.
Wow, it sounds like it. I mean, thank you so much for taking the time and talking with us. It has been really great. I'm not sure how I got intertwined with you on the Twitter, but I'm so happy that you decided to do this. You have so much to say, so much of interest, and I'm just looking forward to reading more of you. And I really appreciate you taking this time to hang out with us for a while.
25 minutes.
25. Perfect.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. I'm
going to see you out there. And maybe if I come to Belfast in the next year, I'm definitely going to say meet us at a pub. It'll be fun.
Yes, myself and my wife will come up and certainly show you around the city. Yeah.
So fun.
There's plenty of pubs. Don't worry.
Thanks so much. It's been a pleasure.
Okay. Thank you, Kellie.